Here are 5 lab tests you absolutely need to request from your doctor to measure your metabolic health. Only 7% of Americans are metabolically healthy. That's an insane statistic. Our metabolism is the ability to take in fuel, food and oxygen, and turn that fuel into energy. So that means most of us aren't able to efficiently convert food into energy, and we can't be the best versions of ourselves. Our health is literally holding us back. Now, science actually shows that our metabolism doesn't naturally slow down between our 20s until our late 50s. But when we overwhelm our body with too much sugar, fructose, and processed foods, and we don't move or work out like we used to, then our metabolism, that mitochondria, those powerhouses in our cells, they don't work like they used to. This not only has massive implications for our energy today, but for our longevity too. 8 of the top 10 causes for death are directly or indirectly affected by our metabolism. It's actually 2/3 of all deaths in the United States are affected because we're not taking care of our metabolic health. So what are the key lab results to find out how we're doing with our metabolism right now? Number 1, fasting glucose. This measures the sugar in our blood that's not affected by our most recent meal. So you have to fast for at least 8 hours and see how many milligrams of glucose is in a given deciliter of our blood plasma, the liquid of our blood, at any point in time without a lot of food in our bellies. Now, this is an essential test because it can identify future risks before you recognize any significant symptoms. High glucose levels in our blood means our cells can't take in any more glucose, and that excess level has to be stored somewhere. Now, we're designed to store some extra energy in our fat cells, but when this becomes too much, we're at a huge risk of things like diabetes and metabolic dysfunction. It's also been shown that high blood sugar can even alter the expression of our DNA, and not in a good way. So as we age more quickly, we increase our risk for cardiovascular disease, dementia, and even some cancers. So if we get this test, the goal should be to have a fasting blood glucose between 70 and 85 milligrams per deciliter. But at a minimum, you want to be under 100 of milligrams per deciliter. If your fasting glucose is above 100, it usually means you have prediabetes. And if it's higher than 125, you probably have diabetes as well. Now, this test isn't perfect. It's only a snapshot in time. So if you are out of range, maybe take an additional test to really confirm those results. Number 2 is fasting insulin. Now, this is the insulin in our blood, not from that latest bowl of pasta, but at any given time. Insulin is a hormone that carries glucose into our cells, but when we overload our body with too much glucose, we create more and more insulin, and it overworks our pancreas. You've probably heard the term insulin resistance. This is the definition of diabetes, and as our body becomes more immune to insulin, our pancreas goes into overdrive, creating more and more, but it doesn't work as well. It's like when you drink more and more, and you just honestly don't have the effects of alcohol until you drink too much. Insulin resistance is associated with heart disease, some cancers like lung and breast cancer, dementia, fertility issues like PCOS, and fatty liver disease. Now, there isn't really a standard range for this test, but most metabolic health experts suggest you want to be under 10 microunits per milliliter. The higher the range, especially if you're over 20 to 25, could signal metabolic problems. Number 3 is ApoB. Now, most of us think of LDL cholesterol as the bad cholesterol, but just a few things to clarify here. First, we produce most of the cholesterol in our body. It's not from the food that we eat. And second, it's actually the number and the type of cholesterol particles that matter. Now, LDL means low density lipoprotein. That means it's made up of fats or lipids and proteins, hence the word lipoprotein. LDL has more fat than protein. And these particles, what happens is they catch a ride in a car in our bloodstream, and that car is a molecule called ApoB. Now, the more cars on the road, the more likely you get a traffic jam, and the cars will get stuck in the walls of our blood vessels, our endothelium. That's when you start to have heart problems. Now, the test results range from 20 to 400 milligrams per deciliter. Standard results suggest you should be under 130. But experts like Dr. Peter Attia say it should be even lower, ideally under 60 milligrams per deciliter. Now let's make sure to make this a standard part of your lab panel every year moving forward. Now the 4th test is triglycerides. Triglycerides are lipids, aka fats, that store and transport energy. Specifically, they deliver energy to muscle cells and travel throughout our body like cholesterol in our bloodstream. And they are essential, but again, too many can cause problems. Triglycerides are more correlated with metabolic problems than LDL cholesterol. Now, normal ranges are less than 150 milligrams per deciliter. but optimally, you want to be under 100. Again, the lower, the better, with some experts suggesting 70 to 80 milligrams per deciliter is the ideal range if we want to be at our best metabolic health. Now, we have 3 quick wins here to help you lower your triglycerides. First, simple. Eat fewer simple carbs, things like processed food, pasta, bread, and rice. Second, get more omega-3. Studies actually show that just 4 grams of daily omega-3 can lower triglycerides 21 to 35% in most people. Lastly, drink less alcohol. Give your liver a break and you'll see your triglycerides go down. Finally, the last test is blood pressure. Now, this isn't technically a lab test from your blood. You do get it every time you go to the doctor, but it's an essential test and we should make sure we take the test the right way and really care about what those 2 numbers are telling us. Blood pressure is literally the force we put on the walls of our blood vessels every time our heart pumps. The more pressure, the higher risk for damage to those blood vessels, leading to blockages or potentially low blood flow. Now, the 3 organs most impacted by blood pressure are the heart, which is obvious, the brain, which needs a lot of our blood to function, and our kidneys. It's interesting, our kidneys, while only 2% of our body weight, actually receive 25% of our blood to filter everything out we need to get rid of. So here's a few things to do before you take the test to make sure it's as accurate as possible when you get your blood pressure taken. First, make sure you're rested for at least 5 minutes. Sometimes going to the doctor can raise our stress. So maybe do a few rounds of box breathing. Count 4 in, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and another hold for 4. And make sure you go to the bathroom. Apparently, a full bladder can change our blood pressure results. Now, what are we looking for? The first number is our systolic pressure. That's the pressure when our heart pumps blood out into our body. And the second is our diastolic number. This is the pressure when our heart relaxes and pulls blood into the heart. And the 2 numbers are often quoted as saying 120 over 80. And that's actually the key number. That's the maximum optimal range you want for either number. If your systolic is over 120 or your diastolic is over 80, there's a potential problem. You don't even want to be in the elevated range here when it comes to our blood pressure. Now, there's really not a quick fix to lowering our blood pressure. It's about doing the right things on a daily basis. Now, the biggest tool in our toolkit is exercise. You want to be getting at least 3 hours of Zone 2 fitness every single week. And the more you can do it on a daily, consistent basis every day, the better. Number 2 is 7 to 9 hours of high quality sleep consistently. Number 3 is managing stress. Trying breath work or meditation and managing your daily schedule. Studies show that spending more time in rest and digest mode of your nervous system and not fight or flight can actually lower your blood pressure. Now, if you are looking for a quick win, there are some studies that suggest adding more potassium to your diet, like avocados, spinach, and yes, bananas, can also lower your blood pressure. So next time you go get your lab test, which you should be doing every year, make sure you request these 5 tests. You'll now know what they mean, the results you're looking for, and some things you can do if you're not where you want to be. For more, you can subscribe to the Thrive 25 newsletter. We send out science-packed newsletters with quick wins you can implement right away to optimize your health and longevity. There's free access to over 300 newsletters we've already published, so just go to Thrive 25, sign up for free, and get started on your longevity journey.